Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me? Hello? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. If you can hear me, you can just show your reaction. Okay, okay. So we are all welcome to day three of the ongoing free training by Netcom Tech Academy. My name is Daniel, and I'll be our instructor for the web development class today. Currently, we are two on the call, but let's just start with like a review of what we had in the previous sessions. So in the previous sessions, we've learned how to create web pages in code editor using HTML and also how to apply basic styling using CSS. However, styling individual elements is only one part of web development. A website can have beautiful colors and fonts and still look terrible if the content is not properly arranged. And this is where CSS layout becomes very important. So in today's session, we will learn how to control the position, spacing, and arrangement of elements on a web page. So we will also introduce the use of Flexbox, which is one of the most important CSS layout tools used in modern web development. And at the end of the session, each participant will begin working on the final portfolio project for this training. So like I mentioned earlier, by the end of this session, each participant should be able to explain the difference between margin, padding, also be able to control the width and height of elements on their page, as well as understand CSS display property, be able to explain the difference between block and inline elements. They should also be able to understand the basic concept of what we refer to as flexbox, be able to use flex directions, justify content. This session is packed with a lot of things that we're going to learn. So before we go deeper, I want us to have like a quick review of what we had in the previous class. So before starting the main lesson, we are going to quickly revise the previous class. So I would like to ask a question, and that is, what is the difference between HTML and CSS? If you have the answer, you can raise your hand and talk. Can we hear me? Okay, Mr. Samuel.
Okay, I'm not very sure, but then HTML is a markup language, while CSS is a programming language.
Oh, you said CSS is what again?
The CSS is a programming language. I was what
Okay,
I can remember.
okay. So, do we have any other person who's going to help us out with maybe another definition? Okay, I believe there is none. So we can say HTML provides the structure of a web page, just like Mr. Samuel said, it's a markup language, while CSS controls the appearance and the design of a web page. So that's for HTML and CSS. Okay, another question is, what does a CSS selector do? What does a CSS selector do? Who is going to help us out this time? Okay, so I guess
Can I try?
we don't have an answer for that. So, okay, yeah, sure.
Okay, since you said CSS is how you control the website, how you control the language. So I think a CSS selector is, I don't know, is what's used to instruct the web page. So, or better still, how what's used to style the web page.
Okay. So thank you for your answer. Well, the CSS selector allows or gives us the ability to select the HTML elements that we want to style. So from the word selector, it enables us to select a specific HTML element that we wish to style. Okay, so another question is, what is the difference between margin and padding? Margin and padding. And just try. What's the difference between margin and padding? Okay. Oh. All right. So do we have anyone who's going to try and help us with the difference between margin and padding? Okay, today we'll be exploring more into margin and padding. So this is exactly what we are going to properly understand today, the difference and the use of margin and padding on our page. Then we discuss about CSS layout and why it matters. So imagine you have a web page that imagine you have a web page containing a logo, a navigation menu, like 3 cards, a button. You have styled all of them. You've given them a perfect color. Even the choice of font is good. You've chosen a very good font. But at a certain point, you realize everything appears randomly on the page. The website itself is poorly designed. So this is where CSS layout comes in. CSS layout is that process of arranging elements on a web page. And with CSS layout, we get to answer questions like, where should these elements appear? Like, how much space should exist between different elements, and should a certain element appear beside each other, or should they appear on top of each other? And what about how do we center an element? So with all these, CSS layout helps us to answer the questions. So from CSS layout now, let's talk about something known as the CSS margin. Just like the question asked before, the difference between margin and padding. Do we have a clear difference? Well, the margin is the space outside an element. You can think of margin like the space or the distance between one element and another element around it. Let me open up my Paint so I can show visual in. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen now. You can all see the screen, right? Can we see the screen? Okay. So now we're talking about margin. What is margin? And I made an analogy of margin as the distance between one element and another element around it. So think of, we have a box like this. We have a box like this and another box like this. See, a little space here behind these two, beside, should I say between these two boxes, this little space here is what we refer to as the margin. So margin simply means the space between elements on our page, whether it is now from the top, the right, the bottom, or the left. So the space around our item, our elements that separates them from another is what we refer to as margin. So imagine a situation where we want elements like this and give it a margin of 20 pixels. So in our CSS, we'll do something like, okay, margin cost like 20 px. So by saying margin is equal to 20 px, we are saying from the top, the right, the bottom, and the left, give this element 20 pixel space. So any other thing that will be around it will be separated with a 20 pixel gap. So if another element is going to be at the top, to be around here from 20 pixel, the right 20 pixel, the bottom to 20 pixel, and the left 20 pixel. So this is how margin works. So margin is basically the space around our element that separates it from other elements on the same web page. So a simple analogy again that we can use is the instance where we have students sitting in a classroom. So the space between each student and the next is similar to margin. That space that separates student A from student B, even if they are seated on the same seat, that little space that separates the two is what we refer to as margin. And then we can have margin from the top, from the right, from the bottom, and also the left. So I'm going to share the screen of my text editor now to show us something about margin and see how we can write for the margin top, for the margin bottom, and also the margin left. Okay. Okay, I believe we can all see the, yeah, okay, good. So now we have to write margin. Let me quickly go to the CSS file and call it style.css. It's to the right. Okay. So quickly import it in my HTML. Style.css. Good. So now let's have, okay, we have a text here that says Daniel. We have image and another text here. So we want to give margin. Let's give margin to the image. So the image can have like separate distance from text at the top and also from the text at the bottom, the H1 and the H3. So we want to have spaces around our picture. So I'm going to call the picture using the img tag. Then I'll say margin. So if I'm to give margin to the top, that's going to be margin top, 20 pixel. So this is going to apply margin to the top of the picture. So let's preview it on the browser. So this is the browser now, and currently we have a bit of spacing from Daniel. Let me quickly remove something else from this. So come here and remove the default styling so we can see what's happening. So I remove the default padding and the default matching. And I'll head back into this. Okay. So you can see now the spacing here between our H3, which is I am a web developer at Netcom Technology, has reduced, and the spacing between Daniel and the picture is shown, which is what we said to here as 20 pixel. So now let's give spacing as well from the bottom so we can have margin between our picture and the H3 text. So that is going to be margin bottom and 20 pixel. Save it. Go into the browser. You can see now we have spacing between the picture and the H3 text underneath, as well as the H1 on top of it. So this is how the margin property for CSS layout works. So you can always apply margin to the four sides of any element you are working with. You can always apply margin. So currently we are writing margin for the top, writing margin for the bottom. We also have a shorthand in which we can use. So instead of writing four separate properties, we can write single property that handles and applies to all the four sides. So instead of repeating ourselves by doing margin top, margin bottom, we can simply just do margin and say 20 pixel. So this line now is going to apply margin to all the four sides. So this is going to apply this 20 pixel margin to all four sides. And let's look at it in the browser. So you can see now we have from the top, from the left, the right is not kind of visible because we have blank space. And then at the bottom, we still have our 20 pixels. So the shorthand allows us to give values to all the four sides at once. And speaking about using shorthand property, we also have the one that allows us to apply margin to two sides by giving two values together. So we can set margin top with one value. Margin top and bottom with one value, then margin left and right with another value. So if we are to apply margin with two values, I'm going to delete this. I'll just comment this one out for the sake of this. I'm not. Okay, so I've commented this out. So now if we are going to apply margin with two values, it is also very similar. So write a margin. So the first one is going to be for the top and the bottom, and that can be 20 pixels. And the other value is going to be for the left and the right, or the right and the left. So let's try this one to be 40 pixels. So with this, we are giving margin to left, right, top, and bottom. So 20 pixel goes for top and bottom, and the 40 pixels applies to the left and right side. So let's check it out in the browser. So now we have 20 from the top, 20 from the bottom, and then 40 pixels from the left and 40 pixels from the right side. So that is for the two values. So we've done the one for a general one that applies to all four sides. We've done the one that takes two values for top and bottom, left and right. So we also have the way in which we can set a margin for the four sides, but we won't directly be saying margin top, margin bottom, margin left, margin right. So this is going to be margin for four values. Margin with four values instead. So we write it this way, margin. So this is it. We always have the arrangement as top, right, bottom, and left. So it is TRBL for our sides. Margin top, margin right, margin bottom, and margin left. So now back to the code. So we can give a margin top, let's say 10 pixels, margin right, which is our R, is going to be 20 pixels, then margin bottom 30, and margin left 40 pixels. So we have top, right, bottom, and left. So let's check in the browser. So from the top we have 10, from the right we would have 20, but because of the white background we can't be able to see the spacing. And then from the bottom we have 30 pixels, and the left we have 40 pixels. So this is how margin works for the four sides. We've seen for the two sides, we've seen for each side below, and the general that groups all together. I believe we all got that point very well. Sylvia with me, please. Let me just see like a thumbs up to show we are following the class. Okay, thank you. So one more thing that we have with margin is the property called margin then the value as auto. So the auto value can be used to horizontally center an element when it has a defined width. So let's say we have now a screen like this. So let's bring this up. We have a box. Oh, sorry. A box, it's a fixed width. So when we use margin auto, margin and set the value to auto, it allows us to like center this our box, this element horizontally on our page. So it allows us to like not give margin from left, margin from top, but rather to horizontally put this element on the page, provided we have given it a defined width. So I'm going to write an example how to now. So let me clear this. So I'll create a div class of card. Now come inside. Come inside there and then target the card. Dot card. So give it a width of like 300 pixels. Let me try and add to out of 300 pixels as well and background color is to red. And we check on the page. So currently we have the box by the left side of the screen. So let's try out how margin auto margin then sets to auto and come back. Oh wow. So now we have the red box at the center of the screen, horizontally centered. So by using the margin auto property, the browser divides the remaining horizontal space on our page equally between the left and the right, then place the item centrally on the web page. So margin auto, the browser automatically recalculates the spacing from the left and the right, and then puts whatever elements or widgets we are trying to place horizontally on our web page. It is important to know that the margin auto property does not magically center everything. It is only used for horizontal centering if the element is given a defined width. And like we have here in the code, we've given a width to our card, and the width was set to 300 pixels. So the browser was able to calculate the spacing from me, and the spacing from me then place our 300 pixels size element at the center of the page. So now we've talked about margin. The next is the property called padding, CSS padding. So what is CSS padding? Unlike margin, CSS padding is the space inside an element between its content and its border. So CSS padding is the space inside an element between its content and its border. So let me add something into the box, like an H2 says hello world. So currently now we have the hello world like squeezed into the left side of the box. So how does padding work with the box? So let's start our box. Okay, we already have the box at the top. So we're going to add padding here now. So we'll say padding 20 px and save. Let's check the box out. So now the box has a padding of 20 pixels, which is inside. Unlike margin that is outside, padding is inside this box between the border of the box, the edge, and the content that is inside. So we have 20 at the top 20 at the left, the bottom, and the right. So the calculation for margin and padding works the same way. We still have the top, right, bottom, and left. The top, right, bottom, and left. So they work in a very similar way when we are writing the spacing we want, but the difference is just the way they work. Margin is for outside the container, the space between outside the container, while padding is space given inside the container between the border of that container and the content of the container. So one of the important things that we have to consider again is just the difference between margin and padding. Let's bring up our illustration part. Okay. So, sorry. Okay, cool. So margin is the space outside, space outside or space around our element. The elements outside of it, while padding is the space inside the element, separating the border of the elements and the content. Say between the border and the content. So that's the work of margin and padding. So let's talk about another thing, which is the width and height, even though we've set width and height for the card here. So CSS allows us to control the size of an element by setting a certain width and a certain height that we want to use. So the width controls how wide an element is going to look like, and the height controls how tall an element is going to be. So currently we have the width of 300, the height of 300. So let's make some adjustments and change. So let's set our height to 450 and reduce the width to let's do 250. So reduce back to 100%. Okay. So now the 100%, we can see the width of the box like this. So this is no longer a square, but it's given us a rectangle kind of a thing. So the width, how wide it is around 250 pixels, and the height is set to 450 pixels. So during the calculation, adding borders and margins, they can affect the total space occupied by an element. So they also calculated in some instances as part of the width and height of elements. So when you apply padding, when you apply margin or border, they are all calculated around the width of your element. So let's move on to the next part of our course. And this time around, we'll be looking at the CSS display property. What does the CSS display property do? The CSS display property controls how an element behaves on the page. CSS display property controls how an element behaves on the page. So every HTML element has a default display behavior. And the two most important types are the block and inline. Usually the block and the inline as the two basic types of. We still have other display types, but the two basic ones are the block and the inline. So what's the difference between the block and the inline display property? So we'll start with the block element. So a block element normally starts on a new line and takes up the available width. Block line element normally starts on a new line and takes the available width. And we have examples of these tags like the div, the h1, the p tag, and the section tag. So these elements, when we use them on our page, they start with a new line and they take the available width that they can find on the page. So I'm going to cite an example now and show us how these components all work together. So currently, we'll go to our CSS and then we write, you already have the H layer. So let's do an H1. This is welcome to the free training. And let's check it out in the browser and see how it looks like. Okay, let me just give the box a better width so we can see very well. 450, 452. Okay. So now we have everyone at the top, and then welcome to the free training at the bottom. So this is how block level elements behave. Instead of allowing themselves to share space with other elements, rather they ensure they fit in and take the available width. Though the element is not stretching to the end of the box, yet the browser displays each block level element on a separate line and ensures they take the full width that is available on the space. So that is that about block level elements. Then we have the other basic type called the inline element. So what's the difference now? The inline element does not automatically start on a new line. It takes only the space that it needs. Remember, block level takes the available width, but inline elements only take the space that it needs. And we have tags for inline such as the span, the A, the anchor tag, the strong, EM tags. All these are examples of the inline element. So let's create a new instance of thing. So we are going to use span here and says inline element. Then we have the anchor tag, which is for linking. You can say click me. Then we go into the browser to check them out. See, we have inline and click me, staying side by side. So inline elements do not automatically start on a new line. Instead, they take the needed width for them. They don't occupy the available width, but just stick to what they truly need. What they truly need at a specific point. So, for example, you've seen links on a website. Let's say you visited the website, you've probably seen something like this. Say header. And inside the header, I'm going to have links for home, for services, about, and contact. Might have wondered, okay, how were they able to achieve this? So let's see and go to our browser. So we have the home, the services, the about, and contact links staying side by side. So with inline elements, we can make our elements appear beside one another on our web page. So we can just add a bit of margin and padding, then give them spaces between them. So let's try and add a bit of spacing. So I'll just call header and the say margin. So for the top and the bottom, I won't be giving margin. Then left and the right, let's delete details and save. We put our page. Okay, so now we have spaces between our texts, our links on the page. So with inline, you can have something like this, and with block level element, you can have the element starts with a new line and taking the available widths they find on the web page. So we've talked about CSS layouts, we've talked about two displays, block and inline. Another display property we have is called the non-display property. And what does this do? This hides an element completely from the web page, from the screen. So it is not going to be visible on the screen. So let's go into our text editor. And this time around, now we are going to hide this box that we've created. Red box. We're going to hide this. So we'll come into the styling that we have for it. Add. Then we set the display to none and save. Then we head back to our page. So now the red box is completely gone, and that is to the help of the display none property. So this allows us to hide an element completely from the page. So when do we use this display none? The display none is used when we want an element to disappear from the screen, or when we have an element that takes up space and it is not required to do that. So you can just remove the element from that display and still show other content. So it is not going to take space and will also as well disappear from the display. One thing to understand is that the display none is different from the visibility property of hidden. They are two separate things. If we are to change this from display none and make the visibility hidden, they are two separate things. So with visibility hidden, you can see the element still takes the 450 pixel space that we set, and we have our links at the bottom. So when we use visibility hidden, the element is going to be invisible, but it is still going to occupy the space. So that space that it occupies is still going to remain at the position. So the simple difference is that when we use display none, the element completely disappears, and the space it's occupied before also disappears with it. But when we use visibility hidden, the element disappears, but the space it occupied remains the same. So that is for the display property of none, and also the visibility type of hidden. I believe we are all following along. So now let's move to what we call Flexbox. Get our introduction to Flexbox. So Flexbox is also another CSS property. Flexbox is also another CSS property, and it is used for layout too. So it allows us to arrange our elements as well. And before Flexbox, developers often struggled on how to arrange elements properly. So the introduction of Flexbox makes it easier to arrange our elements either in rows, columns, to center elements, to create navigation bars, build layouts, complex card layouts. All these were made easier with the help of the Flexbox. So let's look at the example of a flex container and a flex item. flex container and flex item. So I'm going to share my screen now. We'll go into VX Code. Okay. So let's comment this part out. So now we're going to create a flex container, which is going to be our container using a div. Then we'll give it the class name of container, and then we are passing in items inside. So we refer to the items as the flex items. So this is going to be another, can be a div, can be another element. I'll just want to use this as an example. Then we have 2 and also 3. So we have 3 divs in our flex container, the print container. So this one that is the outer part with the class name of container is the flex container, and the divs inside are the items or the flex items. So let's check out the browser and see what is really happening. Okay. So you can see currently we still have them displayed like a block level elements 1, 2, 3. So how does Flexbox work? What is the work? So let's go back into the code again. So this time around we are going to activate our flex. Activate flex. And how do we activate flex? So we call the container by its name, the class name that was given to it. Then we set the display to flex. So now you should see something different. Oh, good. So now we have 1, 2, 3. They are all side each other, they are beside each other. So once we write flex, the flex property is applied on the parent container, that flex container, and the children they inherit the display type to be flex. So they are all arranged side by side, like they are on a row now. But currently, when we're talking about arranging elements, that we said with flex, we can arrange elements either as row, on a row, or on a column. So how do we achieve arrangement of items on row or column? That is where the flex direction comes in. So we can also specify the direction in which we want our items to flow. So the flex direction property controls the direction in which our items are arranged. And by default, it usually takes the display of the direction of row. So we say flex direction row and save. You see, we still have them beside each other, so they are still on the same line. That is how row works. So row aligns it arranges our items horizontally. So we have 1, 2, and 3. So let's do something. Let's give a bit of spacing between this. So we say dot container and the div inside of them. And let's give them equal margin to 10 pixels. Okay, so now we have space between our divs. So for flex duration row, it is going to arrange our items horizontally. Then the other direction that we have is the column, flex direction column. And I believe we all can guess how that is going to look. So let's come back here and change the flex direction. And this flex direction and change this one to column. Good. So with flex direction column now we have our items arranged vertically. So our items are arranged vertically on column. So again, the difference between flex direction row and flex direction column is that on row our items are arranged horizontally, and on column our items are arranged vertically. So another property we'll look at when working with display flex is what we refer to as the justify content property. What does the justify content property do? The justify content property controls the alignment of our items along the main axis. So for a row, the main axis is going to be horizontal, and for column, it's going to be vertical. So items are going to be arranged, aligned on the main axis. So let's try out a few values because we have some other common values such as justify content, flex start, center, flex end, space between, space around, space evenly. So now let's go into code here, and then we have flex direction. So let's say justify content center. So let's give it an height 400 pixel, height as well 400 pixel. In a bit of background. So when we use justify content and our flex direction is set to be column, we've arranged the item at the center vertically to wrap equal speed from the top, equal speed from the bottom, and dumps the item at the center of the widget or the element. So if we were to set our flex direction to row now, let's change this back. Comment it out. Come here. So now we have equal spacing from the left and equal spacing from the right. So this is our flex direction, whether it is long or row, what justify content. It aligns our item horizontally or vertically inside the flex container. So another one for justify content I would like to use is the space between value. So justify content. So let's change this to space between and save. Then go to our browser. So with space between now, so we have equal spaces between the flex items. Remember, the space is not added outside the book, in between the elements. So we have equal space between 1 and 2 and 2 to 3, but not between the edge or the border of the box and the first child. Rather, it's between the first child, the second, and the third. So this is how space between works. It pushes the items to the beginning and the end, giving them equal spaces around. Let's reduce this to 2 so you can see. So we have 1 by the left side and 2 by the right side. So we give them like a spacing, pushing them to the edge of the display. So another one aside space between this, or we have a space evenly. So how does space evenly works? Let's check it out. Oh, good. So space evenly gives equal space around our items. Equal space here, equal space here, and they still share an equal space around. So with space evenly, equal space is placed around the items on our page. So we've talked about justify content for centering or aligning our items along the main axis. So now let's talk about the cross axis. But before moving to cross axis, let me share the link for attendance so we can all take our attendance for the class. So give me a few seconds to generate that. So I will drop the link now in the chat so you can follow along and sign mark up the attendance. So ensure to mark your attendance to show a record of your participation in the program. Okay, so now let's continue with align items that helps us to align our items on the cross axis. So for a row, this is now going to be vertical alignment. So for the row, the align items which helps us to align on the cross axis will work with vertical alignment. And we have common values such as align items center, align items flex start, flexing, and stretch. So let me share my screen again now. Going to okay, I'm ready in this. So now I will add new changes into center. And our align items now that shows to align on the cross axis. We're going to set this one as well to center. Then check it out in the browser. Oh, so now with justify content center, align item center, this centers our item both horizontally and vertically. So it helps us to center items horizontally and vertically. And we can use this to center content. Let's say you are designing your section for a website. So you can display the content on the center of that arrow page by using the display flex, setting your justify content to center and the align items to center. Remember, you need to ensure that the parent container that is carrying the flex has a defined width or a defined height for that to work. So far, we've talked about basic CSS layout. We've seen how the components, how they work together. So there is one more thing that we will now do now, which is building a navigation bar. So we want to apply what we've learned so far. We want to build our own navigation bar and test it out on the page and see how it feels like. And after that, we go with a series of questions, and just like the previous sessions, there will be gifts for persons who can answer questions. So I'll go into my folder structure. You can already have the index, so I won't be creating a new. Just do this. I'll clear what I have here, and also clear what I have in the CSS file. So now we're going to create the main navigation bar. Let's see for our website. I'm going to remove the default styling of the page. So I'm going to use the nav tag and give it a name of nav bar. So if you have your system or your phone and you can follow along as we do this, create a class name of nav bar. Then inside it for the brand or the logo, we'll be using H2 just to create that. So I have an H2 that says my website. And also now the navigation links for the home, the about, and the contacts. We need to add them as well. So we'll be adding navigation links. Navigation links here. And what are we going to have? We have the home, the about, and the contact. So now we create a div that will help us to handle the links, the navigation links. Give it a class name called nav links. Inside now, we will create our links for the home, the about, and the contacts. And what tag do we use to create links? We use A stands for the anchor tag to create links. So now write home and just copy it down. Call this one about, call this one contact, since we're only building 3 pages. I mean 3 navigation links rather. So I'll save this, then go and check in the browser. Okay, so currently we have the brand, our logo, and the links like this. Like this. So how do we make it look like a real navigation? What is needed to make it look like a real navigation? Yeah, this is where CSS now comes in to help us style and arrange the layout of our page. Before we continue, I want to know if you guys are following. So probably show of reactions to know if you are getting the steps correctly. Okay, so are we all practicing together? Okay, so now let me share my screen again. Then we'll complete the entire process together. Okay, so back to VS Code now. We already have our layout. Then we've removed the default styling. So let me add a comment here that says remove default styling. Remove default styling from the page. Good. So we say navbar by targeting the parent container, which is this, the navbar. Then we give it our display property. So we want to set the display to flex. So we can have items either on a row, on a column, and able to say one space between them or space evenly and so on, like a normal navigation bar would look like. So we pass in the justify content of space between now. So if I may ask, what does the justify content space between do? What does the justify content space between do? An answer from the audience. Yes.
It means equal spacing.
Okay, equal spacing from where? Can you specify where the equal spacing is coming from, Mr. Olakunle Joseph?
That means there should be equal spacing between the home, about, and contacts. They should have equal space. They should spread.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Mr. Olakunle Joseph. So with justify spacing, we're going to have spacing between the brand here as well as the nav links here. So let's continue with our process. So we have justified content space between. So the next thing we're going to pass is align items. So align items, this is going to center or align our elements for us. So let's check the result out now. Okay, so now we have my website by the left side of our screen and also the navigation links by the right side. So this is a simple navigation. So let's add a few things to make it look good. Make it look good. So for the logo, you can say H2. Let's give it. So instead of giving H to the margin directly, let's apply it to the nav bar. I give it the padding. Let's say 20 pixels for the padding. Okay, so this looks better now. We have spacing from the left, the top, and the bottom. Spacing, yeah, good. So one more thing we do is add spacing to our links as well. So you can for me and just say the nav links. Okay. Then we say margin. For the top and bottom, we are going to set it to 0. And then from the right and the left, let's do 20. Let's see how it works. Okay, so now we have the home, the about, and the contact links all showing on our nav. Let's keep this the background. So let's do background blue. Okay. Okay, we can change the color of our text so it can show see color that's white. And for the logo too, I can give it color of white. So okay, good. So now we have our logo here and our links also on the right side of the screen. So let's explain this process again. The display flex places the elements in the flexible layouts. That helps us to now specify is it going to be on a row or as a column with the help of the flex direction. Or by default, the direction is always row. Then the justify content space between that we used, which is the logo and the navigation links apart. So giving them a space between the logo and the navigation links that we have here. And then the align items center allows us with the ability to center our items vertically. So if we check, they are all centered vertically at this point. So this is a practical example of how Flexbox being used on a website, on a website looks like. So this is how most links that we see, we have logos here, we have other navigation links here. I mean, most websites is how they have their nav bar or the header setup on their page using the display property of Flex. So let's add a few other things to our layout as we currently have. So we'll be proceeding to having a card layout. And if you look, cards are very common in modern websites these days. Examples are things like a product card that shows details of products, the pricing, and as well we have the service card, we have the block cards, and we have the profile cards. So we're just going to create a simple card now and add it to this our page. So I'm going to come after the navigation, then create my cards. So I'll be using a div as well. I'm giving it a class name of cards. So inside card, inside cards, we're going to have 3 other flex items. So card is going to have 3 children and 3 items inside. So the first, I'll call it div of class name card. And inside it we have an H3, we have H3 that says HTML. Then we have a P for paragraph that tells us the word structure of the web. Full stop. Let's check it out. Okay, we have something like this. So let's go back and finish the rest of this. So I'll see the first child or the first item. Then I'll copy this. I'll copy this. I duplicate. Then change this to the second item, and this one to third item. So this will replace it with CSS, style of the web. And the last one is going to be JavaScript. And what does JavaScript do? It dictates the behavior of the web. So now let's look at it from. Oh, cool. So now we have HTML, CSS, and JavaScript all laid out. But we're trying to achieve a card. At this point, they are still displayed as a block level element. So let's do a bit of manipulation to the parent, which is his cards. So we say dot cards, and inside we set the display to flex, and then the gap to 20 pixel. Yeah, you see now we have a bit of spacing, like what we had before, where everything was like into each other. We have a bit of spacing from the left of this. So the gap is to have equals, a bit of spacing between our elements if they are using a grid, a flex display of flex. So this gives us spacing between our elements of the page. So now the cards, they kind of appear outside each other with equal spacing around. So this is how cards, from product cards to pricing cards to service cards are created. So we can do better by just pulling our card and adding a bit of styling to them. So you can just see probably something like padding 20 pixels as well. So, okay, cool. So now we have a bit of padding around them. So let me just do one more thing. So I'm going to add a bit of color to them. Save this. Okay, so we have our cards like this, but this looks kind of ugly. So let's change a few things. Such as saying, okay, let's give this a margin top of 40 pixels. Good. Okay, so this is nice now. So we have spacing between our header and the cards that were created. So this is just a basic example of how you can create card layouts using the flex display property. So now we'll proceed to a classwork. And what are we going to do with this classwork? We are going to create a navigation bar that contains a website logo or name. And we have 4 navigation links for home, about, the services, and contact. Again, we create a navigation bar that contains the website logo or name, and then other navigation links such as the home, the about, the services, and the contacts. And this classwork has a few requirements. So the requirements are that you are going to use a flexbox, you use the justify contents property, you use the align items, and as well add spacing using padding. Again, you create a navigation bar, and the requirements are you use a flexbox, you use the justify content, you use align items, as well add spacing by using the padding property. And then you also create a card layout, just exactly what was practiced. So you also create a card layout, and this card layout, you are going to create 3 cards. Okay. Okay, cool. I will send the a copy of the classwork. Then you are going to create a card layout. So let me quickly grab that. So for the second part of the classwork, you are going to create the card layout with 3 cards, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So each card should contain a title, a short description, and then a button. So each title is going to contain a short description, a title, and a button. So let me quickly grab this and send over. Okay. Okay. So the classwork has been sent into the meetings chat. You can check it out. So this is 318. So okay, thank you. Okay, let me say the time is 3:20. So by 3:40 we should be done. Yes, so by 3:40 we should be done with the classwork, and then we do a bit of revision on how things can be done. And after that, we will have a talk about a project in which we are going to work on. So you are going to work on a project for this training that you are actually taking. So that is going to be after the classwork. So you can do the classwork now, and we meet again by 3:40. Okay, so during the process of doing the classwork, if there's anyone with any issue, you can always raise your hand or just type it in the meetings chat here, and I'll be looking forward to responding to any issues that you have. So I believe we are all in the classwork. So during the course of the classwork, I'm looking for volunteers actually. Three people who can share their screen so we can check how they are getting the work done. So we are hope you can volunteer so we can have a guided classwork together. So if your links are going vertically, you can drop it in the chat, then we'll review it. And if the nav bar is working properly, you can drop one. Let's see what's going on. Okay, so we have like 7 or 6 more minutes. Do we have anyone who's going to share their screen with us? So, Mr. Olapili Joseph or Josephine, Nifemi, who's going to share their screen with us? We can all just have a view of what is going on. You've seen my MSCEOs. So, all right, it is 3:40 now. Are we all done with the exercise? So, can just have a person shows what they were able to accomplish, then we'll talk about the project. Just show what you've built so far, nothing more complex or serious like that. So that we can just have a review and see where we can make adjustments. That's all. Or the we don't get the classwork. Okay, if you are done, okay, can you just share your screen and show us, Mr. Samuel, what you were able to do? Is Mr. Samuel there? Please go ahead and share your screen so we can see what you were able to do. Okay, you can unmute yourself and just tell us. Okay, this is looking good.
Okay. I don't know if I used a code. I'm coding on my phone and Visual Code doesn't work on my phone. So I used a code. This was what I got to do.
Oh, this is looking good. So how are you able to get your logo and the navigation links to stay the way they are arranged?
The way they were arranged. I don't know if you can see. So technically, as you were teaching, I was copying from you as you were teaching. So it was much easier for me to do it. Then this is my class card. This is the navigation, the dev logo that you said we should use. And then button, and the display.
Okay. You've done a very great job. So, do we have someone else who's also going to show us what they've done? Mr. Olakule, Mr. Toby, or Nifemi, who's going to show us what they've built. So we can just see how beautiful your design is. Even if you're not done, you can just show where you stopped, then we see where improvements can be made. Okay, so Mr. Olakule, you can go ahead and share your screen so we can see. Okay, so Mr. Toby said he's joined from his phone. Yeah, you can as well just share your screen if you did the code if you have the code on your phone to show. Okay. You should see like button like this. Let me share my. This one. You should see a button like this on your side on your phone. You can just click on that. It will prompt you to share. This one.
Now, if I want to say how each not for that, you can change the breakdown of what's each month. Good work. Breakdown of each month. Now,
Are you working on that or
just have to do that. So you change the use of that one. To not change it, but anyone there's a big number of sense they might either be one, but can't go with or yes, a big one, a big one, a big one,
okay? Oh. You were asked to create a navigation link and a card layout, just like what we had for the classwork. I'm not sure if you, for practice, I'm not sure if you joined during the practice. You were asked to work on a navigation bar that contains the website logo, the links such as home, about, services, and contact, as well as creating a card layout for HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, something like this. What we have on this screen exactly. This is what you're asked to design. You have bar, logo, links, and then the card layouts like this. Okay, Mr. Samuel.
Please, I have a question. How do I create a button? Because in the classwork, you said we should create a button, and then I don't know, I had a problem. How do I create a button?
Okay. Thank you for asking that. See, this is why I asked to, like, okay, during the classwork, if you have any difficulty, you can just talk about it. So if we are going to create a button, we'll use the button tag like this. So let me add the button to our HTML. We can all see the screen, right? We can see the screen. Can just show a reaction track and continue. Okay. So let me go back. So we use the button tag like this. Let's just say click me. So when you are creating a button, all you need is the button tag, the text inside, the content, and you close it. So let's check the browser now. So we have a button that says click me on our page. So this is what we are asked to add. Title, description, and a button. Then you can go on to beautify your button by adding margin. Let's give it top and bottom. Probably like 10, and the right and left 0, and then a bit of padding, 10 pixel. So use the button tag to create your button. Then you can style it like this. Give it padding, give it margin, and if you want, you can also give it a background color. Let's just see background of white. Save it. So now we have a button on our page. The title, the description, and then the button. So, do you now understand how you can create a button? Okay. Thank you very much. So do you also have another person with any difficulty in setting up the project? The classwork rather. Okay. So you can submit with. Oh, all right. So for those that have the issues with their system or the connection, you can just do as Mr. Olakule's suggestion. You can submit it alongside with your assignment or the project. Yeah. So now let's talk about the final project. So for the project, you'll be building a personal portfolio website. A personal portfolio website. And what is this thing going to do? The website should showcase who you. Okay, can you hear me? Okay. So this website is going to showcase who you are, what you can do, and your work. Who you are, what you can do, and your work. And you are going to have required sections. Don't worry, the brief is going to be sent so you can have access to it. Required sections, one for navigation. So the website should have a navigation bar and contain the links to different sections of the page. And then number two, we are going to have the hero section. So after the navigation bar, it is your hero section that is next, and that should give an introduction about you. For example, I am Daniel, I'm a web developer. So your hero section should have a text, a caption text like that, and should also include a button or a call to action. Can be a button, something like hire me, contact me, just a button on the hero section. So after the hero section, we have the about section. This is where you get to now introduce yourself properly. So you have to include things like your name, your background, your interest, and your career goals. So that is for the about section. Your name, your background, your interest, and your career goals. And then the number 4 thing is the skills section. So you list the skills or the technologies or the skills which you are learning. So examples like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, UI, UX, and so on under the skills section. And number 5, we are going to have the contact section. So the contact section is going to contain a simple contact form that should take in name, email, message, as well as a submit button. So your contact section, again, we have a form that takes in the name, the email, the message, and a submit button. And lastly, on the portfolio website is the footer. So just create a simple footer at the bottom of the page. So you are going to create 6 things on this portfolio website. The required sections are 6. The first one, again, navigation, hero section, about section, skills section, the contact section, and finally the footer. So for the project requirement, you are going to use HTML, you are going to use CSS. Then you are going to create a navigation section that includes the use of proper spacing. And you must use Flexbox for at least one layout. So for the 6 sections, you must use Flexbox for at least one of them for your markings. Then you must have clear sections. Everything must be clear and properly laid out, also properly organized. Then use meaningful HTML element. Use meaningful HTML element. So use HTML, use CSS, use proper spacing, have a good navigation section, use at least Flexbox in one of your layouts. So the project timeline. So you can start the project now and you're expected to complete before the next training session. So you are going to submit at the normal submission date that we used to have for the project. Then it will be graded and each participant will also be updated about the grades of the project. I believe the project brief is clear. So it will be sent to you so you can still go through it. So today we've learned a couple of things about CSS layouts, such as margin, padding, width and height, as well as display. We also touch things like block, inline elements, flex box, flex direction, justify content, align items, and we're able to create navigation and as well create card layout. And most importantly, we learned how to control the layout of a web page. So now we're going to have a quick knowledge check of what we've done so far. And as I said, that is going to be kind of a gift for those who are able to answer the questions correctly. So the first question is, what is the difference between margin and padding? So if you know the answer, you can just raise your hand and you'll be called. Okay, so Mr. Samuel.
Okay, for imagine, sorry, padding is for inside. You used is why margin is for outside. There's a difference
Okay.
of the
Okay, so what you said, padding is for the inside, margin is for the outside. What are we doing inside? What are we doing outside?
we are arranging the width, the length, the structure of the structure of the website. But then when you were teaching, you used the box, and then you were saying that when you want to arrange the lecture inside the box, they write up that the padding is for the inside. But then when you want to structure the outside structure, that's when you use the margin to structure the outside.
Okay. Thank you very much for your fine answer. That is well appreciated. Okay, so the second question is, what is the default flex direction? What is the default flex direction?
After C. You got to say you know your screen is there.
Oh, okay. So Mr. Tuge Gujobi, okay. He said margin has to do with the space between the border and the content in terms of width and height. Then we have margin top, margin bottom, margin left, margin right. And padding, on the other hand, as is the space outside the border. Okay, the default flex direction is row. Okay, so you got the part about the default flex direction as row, but for the margin and padding, margin is actually the space outside the border, while padding is the space between the border and the content. So you had a mixed up there. Okay, so let me ask the final question, which is, what is the difference between display none and visibility hidden? Display none and visibility hidden. Hopefully someone gets this one right. Okay, Mr. Olakunle, speak on.
Display none, it won't display anything at all. Why display visibility? It will hide. It's going to be there, but it won't display it. Shumba, I think so. Yeah.
Oh, awesome, awesome.
Yep.
Okay, so Mr. Olakunle, you can drop the phone number in the chat. You were able to answer exactly the question. So this is how we come to the end of today's session, and we hope to see you in the final session of the 30 days training in the coming week.